Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the way you think about measuring business success. If you've ever found yourself wondering how the absolute top-tier companies hit these massive financial targets without, completely losing sight of their day-to-day operations, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're unpacking some fascinating research that completely changes the game when it comes to organizational performance, specifically looking at how the financial perspective fits into the bigger picture of the balanced scorecard. So think about this for a second. Could focusing only on your profits actually drive your company out of business? It sounds totally backward, doesn't it? But it's true. I really want to pose this paradox right out of the gate because it challenges an assumption we all kind of naturally make. We assume that if we just aggressively monitor our traditional accounting metrics, protect the bottom line at all costs, our company is totally safe. But the research actually shows that obsessing over short-term profitability often completely undermines long-term profit maximization. In other words, hyper-fixating on today's profits could literally drive your company into the ground tomorrow. Okay, let's really dive into this. The brilliant minds behind the framework we're exploring today, Dr. Robert Kaplan and Dr. David Norton, totally hit the nail on the head regarding standard accounting. They noted that traditional financial measures are inadequate because they only tell, quote, the story of past events. Think of it like a rearview mirror. Managing your business solely by looking at your balance sheet is like driving a car at 70 miles an hour while exclusively staring into the rearview mirror. I mean, sure, it shows you exactly where you've been, but it gives you absolutely zero indication of where you're actually going. So, here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll unpack the core flaw of traditional finance. Second, we'll enter the balanced scorecard. Third, we'll zoom right in on the financial perspective. Fourth, we'll map out the drivers of future financials. And finally, we'll look at some real-world strategy in action. Let's get started. All right, part one, the flaw of traditional finance, looking in the rearview mirror. Here's the rub with the modern information age. It's all about how traditional finance labels things. Standard accounting conventions worked perfectly fine back in the industrial age, but they completely fail modern companies. Why? Well, under these old rules, critical human assets, we're talking employee skills, advanced training, deep customer relationships, they are usually omitted completely from a company's balance sheet. Instead of being properly valued as intangible assets that drive future value, they just get mislabeled as short-term expenses. So when an executive needs to boost short-term profitability, what do? They cut training. They slash customer service budgets. They are effectively cutting the exact things that drive their future financial success. And get this, because this is a massive strategic error. According to the research, non-financial assets, those exact intangibles we just talked about, actually explain 50 to 80% of a firm's total value. By relying solely on traditional financials, companies are basically blinding themselves to over 3/4 of what actually makes their business valuable. Crazy, right? Moving on to part two. Enter the balanced scorecard, the four-legged stool. To fix this massive blind spot, Kaplan and Norton developed the balanced scorecard, which evaluates performance across four distinct but completely interconnected pillars. You've got learning and growth, which looks at your corporate culture and training. You have internal process, which is all about operational efficiency. There's the customer perspective, tracking things like satisfaction and accessibility. And finally, the financial perspective. You can really just think of this framework as a four-legged stool. It provides a completely strategy-supportive structure. If you remove any of the non-financial legs, say, you just stop training your employees or your internal processes become super wasteful, that financial leg simply cannot stand on its own. The whole shebang collapses. Financial success doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It is fully 100% supported by the other three elements. Which brings us nicely to part three, the financial perspective, the ultimate destination. Now, don't get me wrong here. We aren't saying finance doesn't matter. In fact, it is the ultimate destination. The balanced scorecard absolutely retains financial metrics as the ultimate outcome measure for company success. When we look at the financial perspective within the larger context of the scorecard, its entire job is to answer one core strategic question for executives. How do we look to shareholders? It essentially ensures that all your grand strategy is actually linked to the creation of real shareholder value. So what exactly goes into this perspective? The financial segment evaluates overall health by tracking the heavy hitters: sales figures, income growth, return on equity, cash flow, and variations from the budget. These are your lag indicators. They are the cold, hard monetary values that confirm whether your strategy actually worked. But again, and this is the crucial part, they don't tell you how to achieve them. To figure out the how, we have to look at the rest of the scorecard.
Let's dive into part 4, drivers of future financials, mapping the causal chain.
This is what we call the driver versus destination concept. If the financial perspective is our destination, then the learning, internal, and customer perspectives are the engines powering the journey. It's basically a domino effect, a simple causal chain. Let's walk through it. Step 1, if you invest in better employee training, that's your learning and growth, your team becomes far more capable. That naturally leads to step 2, reduce cycle times and way fewer process defects, hitting your internal business process perspective. And because your internal processes are humming along, we move right to step 3. Customers experience higher quality and on-time delivery. That leads to higher customer retention and spending, which is your customer perspective. And finally, all that loyal customer behavior drives step 4, higher revenues and financial margins. You see how that flows? The non-financial metrics are the literal drivers of your future financial performance.
Finally, part 5, real-world strategy in action, Walmart and Walgreens.
Let's ground all these abstract management concepts in a bit of reality to show why this matters so much. Let's look at Walgreens first. The sources highlight Walgreens combining internal strategic moves, like generating $1 billion in cost savings just from purchasing synergies, with massive, massive financial targets. Their financial perspective goals were completely staggering. We're talking increasing revenues to more than $130 billion and bumping operating income to $8.5 billion. By using a balanced approach, they were able to translate those overarching financial destinations into actual day-to-day operational objectives for their purchasing teams. But here is an even more dramatic example of non-financial drivers creating financial success: Walmart's early response to the COVID-19 pandemic. When things started getting intense in early 2020, Walmart didn't just panic and stare at their budget. They immediately looked at their internal and customer perspectives. Internally, they implemented strict safety protocols, following CDC guidelines for cleaning and social distancing to protect their workforce. From a customer perspective, they proactively strengthened their supply chain to meet this completely unprecedented demand. And they focused super heavily on their grocery shopping app to ensure customers could get their goods safely. Now, traditional accounting would say those operational and customer-focused initiatives were just massive short-term expenses. But actually, scratch that. They functioned as massive long-term drivers because they rapidly met the customer's need for accessibility during a crisis. Walmart's grocery app registered an explosive 460% growth in average daily downloads by April 2020. That is a non-financial metric that is just completely off the charts. And what happened to their financial destination as a result? Well, directly because of those internal process pivots and major customer satisfaction wins, Walmart US saw their comparable sales increase by 6%, and their operating income spiked by an incredible 26.8%. They totally proved the ultimate success of the balanced scorecard flow. By excelling at internal safety and customer delivery, the lag indicator, that massive financial gain, basically took care of itself. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen today that relying solely on financial data really is like driving your car while exclusively looking in the rearview mirror. To truly succeed and reach that financial destination, you need the whole balanced scorecard powering the engine. So I will leave you with this question. If your balance sheet only tells the story of yesterday, what metrics are you using to write the story of tomorrow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.